moving on now. Look, are we losing discipline in our schools? Teachers at an academy in Kent went on strike over pupil violence, with teachers reporting that members of staff are threatened daily. The head of the school says pupils' behaviour across the country had worsened since the pandemic, adding a lack of funding made it difficult to tackle the issue. OK. Joining me now is Editor-in-Chief of the Good Schools Guide, Lord Ralph Lucas. Mr Lucas, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Now, this is a shocking story, but this is concerning one school in the Isle of Sheppey on Kent. So the basic question I want to ask here, how widespread is this that pupils are so out of control? This one teacher here, interviewing here, said he's in tears at not knowing what to do, how to cope with this.
It's not uncommon. I don't think we've got any good data as to how frequent it is, but it's something one sees a fair bit of. It is something which should be dealt with, because there are plenty of examples of schools where this doesn't happen. It's one of the big puzzles we have at the moment as to how to get this straight.
So is this? I mean, I went to school back in the dark ages, obviously, but we had badly behaved kids there. But I recall the teachers being the ones in control. If you read what's happening in many schools now, it seems that the lunatics are literally running the asylum. The kids are the ones in charge. They're the ones telling the teachers how the school should be run, often while carrying knives.
And there's nothing that excuses that, to my mind. The government has a very excellent behaviour czar called Tom Bennett. There are some really good examples of schools which are run without this sort of trouble, like Michaela, which is not in an easy part of London. So, and if I look back in my history, then there was a time when one of the people who worked with me on the Good Schools Guide was a maths teacher in St George's, Maida Vale, and it was just as this school in Kent is now described. But they changed the head, they changed the senior leadership team, and now it's a wonderful school. So it can be done. You can get this straight, but it requires really good management at the top and a real focus on getting good behaviour.
In a sense, too soft on some schools, and some teachers, not all, obviously, are too soft on kids. They are letting them get away quite literally with murder.
It's not the teachers. I mean, if you're a teacher, you just have to go along with the systems that are there in the school. It's the head, the senior leadership team, the multi-academy trust on top of that. Oasis is not a bad outfit. It ought to be able to get this straight. I'm really surprised that it hasn't. But it's such a big thing for parents to send your child to a school where behaviour is bad. They don't learn. They get bullied. It's a really difficult time for them. We owe it to our children to get this straight.
Absolutely. Oasis is the name of the school, Oasis Academy, which is on the Isle of Sheppey in Kent, and this is which this story is particularly about. So are parents now, this is the other thing, is right, OK, when I was a kid, as I said, back in the dark ages, if I did something naughty at school, I would go home and get a clip round the ear from my mum or my dad, march back up the school, and they would say to the teacher, look, have a go at her, tell her off, etc, etc. Now, nowadays, I'm hearing stories where kids are naughty at school, parents then go to the school and give the teacher a clip round the ear. I mean, how much of responsibility is down to parents here?
Parents are the people who are responsible for their children's education. That's what's written in the Education Act. It's absolutely parents' responsibility to back the school up. If they don't like what the school's doing, choose a different school. But if you've chosen to send a child to a school, support what it's doing, support how it manages things, talk to them civilly, and that way you'll get the best out of it. There's no excuse for abuse or violence.
Absolutely. And just one final very quick question. We're running out of time, unfortunately. There was a report in the papers this week about our knife archers, security archers, scanning kids going into school in case they're carrying knives. What do you make of that?
That shouldn't be necessary. you really shouldn't have let things get to that point where you can't trust the kids not to bring in knives. The school isn't running properly if it has to do that, in my view.
Absolutely. Right, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. And that's Lord Ralph Lucas, Editor-in-Chief of the Good Schools Guide. Thank you very much for joining us.